26. Visiting an Agarthan orphanage. Val didn't appear to miss his guardian. He often came around to chat and to drink tea. Sometimes Tyra came with him. She turned out to be a singer and actor and a very happy, kind girl. There was definitely something between them. I wished them luck with all my heart. Some days later, I was in the garden early one morning. Cecilia was still asleep and I was in the arbor, listening to the birds. Titch was with me, of course. I reflected on all I'd seen since the awful shipwreck and losing my father. I thought back to the training here in Telos and meeting my dear Cecilia. I considered all the new friends and new experiences here, and felt happy and grateful that I was still me, a little wiser possibly, and not cold and dead on the seabed. Another life had awaited me, in a different place, in another dimension. Actually, I have never felt as alive as I do here and now. Mantle and Valencio came to collect me for the day's lesson. Sitting in the hovercraft, Val inquired, "I think about angels sometimes, and wonder if there are angels here, and if not, where are they? Are we angels, even though we think we are alive? Some people do become angels, like the Holy Madonna and the saints, don't they? You have to stop thinking like a Catholic." Mantle scolded him. "There is no religion here, just a belief in the infinite creator. Angels are a race in the fifth dimension, not dead people who have been transformed. That idea is completely erroneous, although I know many surface dwellers believe it. They hope to become angels when they die. That is not how it works. Angels are certainly incredibly helpful, good beings who are responsible for helping humans. They walk between dimensions and are very wise and sensible. The Bible, which mentions angels, is a book like any other, a mixture of imagination and unverified history which surface dwellers have decided to put on a pedestal and worship. Not everything in it is true. Not all an author writes is true." "Excuse me, Mariana, we don't mean you," Tim remarked, smiling. "What is written in this book and what I'm conveying to you is actually true. The surface dwellers need to know that we really exist. We'll provide physical proof soon, but I don't know when. It will happen. We'll come back to that later." "Will I be able to meet an angel?" asked Val. "Perhaps," replied Mantle. "It all depends on you. You have a lot to learn first. As you know by now, there's not only life on Earth," I interjected. "There are different forms of life across the whole universe, and basic human life is similar, even if the Creator gave it slightly varied forms. There is human life, if I may call it that, on many planets other than Earth." This was difficult for a newcomer like Val to grasp, and I could relate to that. I had seen so much evidence to back up my claims, that there was no doubt left in my mind. He was silent now, but he'd soon see proof. The hovercraft stopped. From a large, round building of gemstones a crowd of children flowed forth. They boarded the hovercraft and threw themselves at us. They kissed us and hugged us and patted us where they could. Mantle burst out laughing. "I wanted to show you an orphanage in Telos," he said, grinning. "This is the ultimate hands-on experience. Calm down, kids, and we'll get out." The children retreated quickly, a group of happy, noisy, completely normal children. "I wanted to show you an Agarthan orphanage," he resumed. "It might be less rowdy now. Come on in." For once, Titch seemed subdued. There were children swarming all over him. He knew he was too large for even the tallest child to pet his back, and realized that it would be best to lie down. I could only make out his black nose, which emanated resignation, and I had to laugh. Soon he managed to escape from the attention, and padded along with us, close by my side. It is difficult for a surface dweller to imagine an orphanage like this. I reflected that the children must be happy here. Each one of them had a space of their own, with a bed, chest of drawers, and chairs. The assembly hall was huge, with all kinds of musical instruments in it, a climbing frame, and floor cushions. A little boy came and patted my cheek. "Someone puts us to bed each night," he told me. "They tell us a story and hug and kiss us goodnight. If anyone is upset, they are comforted and hugged more. We get good food and lots of tooth-friendly sweets. Ill children get better very quickly. Somebody always comes to make us better. There was plenty of time for love here. These little children were brought up in a loving atmosphere and encouraged to respond lovingly. It was a wonderful, liberating feeling seeing these orphans growing up surrounded by love. Sometimes children come here from the surface too, Manal told us. Sometimes we collect children who are having difficulties on the surface. They are registered as disappeared and nobody even looks for them. Dal sighed and said, if they had only looked after me like this. I'd like to work in this amazing place. We were back in the hovercraft. I had begun to realize how important positive thinking is, not just going with the flow. The power of thought is our strongest weapon and our strongest defense and our only opportunity for creativity, and I mean creativity. It took a long time before I learned to live by thinking and creating through thought. Without Cecilia, I don't know how I would have coped with all the education. In a strange, mystical way, knowledge stayed in my head instead of going in one ear and out the other. My memory was reliable, and I learned to increase it in various ways. There was plenty to remember in my new life at this time of change. The next stop was a temple. We were to survey the everyday lives of priests and priestesses, Manal explained. I had already done this. Priests and priestesses always work in pairs here, he continued. Often married couples take on difficult cases. What does difficult entail? Dal's question was fairly obvious. Love isn't always as pure as it should be, was Manal's cryptic reply. People have emotional problems here. When difficulties arise, there's always the clergy to talk to, and solutions are found to all problems. As we didn't have any great problems, it was mostly a guided tour of the inner temple, which was beautifully decorated with flowers. I noticed that Val stole up to the altar, crossed himself, and clasped his hands. A persistent seed had been planted in the dark rooms of the Vatican. There wasn't really an altar in the normal sense. There were lovely paintings and a small podium where the two priests were sitting. There were plenty of beautifully arranged flowers. Elementals were fluttering around inside and outside, and the color, perfume, and music contributed to the atmosphere of peace. How old can you get here? Asked Val. Someone suggested hundreds of years, but I can't believe that. He said you look young forever. That's mad. Manal grinned broadly at him. But it's true. The food we eat and the life we live are compatible with the highest principles of life. It's a secret you surface dwellers have never been able to understand. Isn't it boring to live so long? Dal's face reflected the suspicion and skepticism which I had felt myself when I first came. I understood him, so I answered, no, it never gets boring. 4 hours of work and 4 singing, dancing, and playing fill the days faster than you can imagine. The tiredness you feel at the end of the day is natural and healthy and makes for a wonderful sleep. I haven't felt bored since I got here. I asked Tyra too, but she just laughed. She didn't seem to understand the question, said Val glumly. I'm going to try to believe you, and I've definitely decided to stay here. I want to see more, I want to see everything. Manal and I exchanged glances and grinned. This boy was shaping up well, and the thought of him destined for priesthood at the Vatican made me shiver. Our hovercraft flew around with us to the airport, the woods, the sea, and small villages. High up in the mountains, gemstone processing took place, polishing and design. Dal was like a schoolboy, hanging around the various craftsmen and eating noisily, with obvious delight, the vegetarian food we supplied him with. When we finally came to a stop by the elegant entrance to Porthologos, Manal exclaimed, now I've shown you life in Telos and its vicinity. It's time for you to learn how to use the power of thought to create what you want, as long as it's positive. What about the 5th dimension? Val wondered. When will I experience that? Not today, anyway, chuckled Manal. I'm glad you're eager to learn, and in due course you will learn everything. Now we're going into the library for a lesson in the art of creating, for which you will have the best teacher, Arniel. Dal jumped, and put his hands to his mouth as if to stifle a yelp. Instead he whimpered, oh dear. Tyra's dad. Is there a men's room where I can make myself presentable? 27. How the Earth will change. I sat contentedly the whole way home. It had been a wonderful, if tiring, day, and Titch slept with his head on my lap while I yawned prodigiously. At home, good food awaited me and an affectionate wife, who listened patiently to all I had to recount. She had plenty to talk about, too. When she'd finished, the doorbell rang and a man I'd never met before entered before we could open the door. I guess he was human, because that's how he appeared. But you never know. He sort of glowed. He was tall, but they all are here. He was wearing a shimmering silver cape and a wide, embroidered belt. He had dark, shoulder-length, curly hair and a face that was attractive, but not particularly youthful. His nose was prominent, but shapely. His eyes glittered like jewels. You felt privileged to be on the receiving end of his smile. He stretched out his arms and hugged my wife and then me. The hug was like electricity, which left you devoid of anything other than an obvious, gentle, "Now." "I'm Alberto Abertas," he announced. My wife added, "The wisest man in the whole of Agartha." "I've come because you're writing a book about our part of the planet Earth," he continued, sitting down in a chair. "My other name means opening. I work alongside the Count Saint Germain and Master Hilarion. I know Cecilla's parents, and want to congratulate you on your love union. I also want to discuss the plans we have for the future of the planet, in the limelight at present. Surface dwellers have no idea what to expect, and we need to inform them. I realize something has to be done," I nodded in agreement. "Neighboring planets are beginning to feel the effects on the atmosphere caused by the surface dwellers, poisoning, treachery, and such like. Development on the surface has been too negative," agreed our guest. "The whole galaxy is on standby. We have worked long and hard to banish the forces of evil, and we have been fairly successful. It's time to increase these earthly energies. I've come to prepare you to warn the surface dwellers about what will soon happen. You have an important role in this context, Tim, as you are the leader for surface dwellers who come here accidentally. They don't have perception of the problems, and these are numerous. We are going to discuss density. Within physics, there are various kinds of density. People have one kind of density, whereas other worlds normally have a lighter density. Our spaceship and what you call spirits and ghosts, for example, have the ability of appearing invisible to you. You have no idea of the invisible life around you. Planet Earth has free will to play with. I use the word play advisedly, as we use free will in many negative ways. On other planets, free will is limited and held in check. Violence and egotism aren't allowed. Your will has developed in the wrong direction. You use it for evil, and call on powers which shouldn't be allowed to exist. The whole galaxy unanimously believes it is time for the Earth to restructure in a positive way. At this point in time, the work has already commenced. It is high time to cleanse your beautiful planet of all the rubbish which is threatening to suffocate it and Mother Earth. We are going to do this soon. What are you going to do? I asked. Is there really a chance of saving Earth? Yes. His answer echoed in the clear evening air and felt like a sword thrust into all nooks and crannies. He continued, "We will make sure that all your weapons crumble so they can never be used again. Rage and aggression are concepts and feelings which must be banished. You have to realize that these symbols of evil have no place in the world of love which will rule on Earth. Violence must end now. We advise you to live peacefully and spiritually. Your reward for this is to automatically reach a higher level of life. You will have to teach your children at an early stage not to hurt each other and to treat others as they wish to be treated themselves. You will have to practice thinking kind thoughts and being kind. The same goes for your governments. We're already in the process of trying to achieve honest and effective actions in the name of humanity. Stop competing, it's not a race. Very soon, the whole planet will be evacuated. The Earth will move into the fifth dimension and the surface will be purified. As the Earth's frequency increases, electricity will cease to function. There will be mass landings of the Galactic Federation's light ships in towns and the countryside in all countries. All those alive will be taken into the ships. We will divide up the negative and positive souls, the three-dimensional and the five-dimensional, and there will be a great reformation of human souls on Earth. Once you are in the ships, you will be able to witness the transformation of Earth. It will be a fantastic sight. You will come to know things which have been cosmic secrets. I think I'm going to faint, I groaned. Now I realize why I'm here and what I have to do. Many people from above will end up here, right? Exactly. Our new friend smiled. Both you and Cecilia will coordinate with the refugees. The new Earth will be expanded to five-dimensional on the inside and the outside. The deserts will disappear and instead there will be tropical paradises. The inside and the surface will be reunited. There will be plenty of world trees. Enter one of these, and you enter a beautiful extension of the Earth. I didn't understand that bit, I interrupted in confusion. The trees will have a different environment inside? Are you joking? You might think so, laughed Alberto. Lots of things will happen, but it is too soon to discuss them now, as your form is very physical. That will also change. Do you realize that you will be able to see and work with elementals? Absolutely. We're already friends, as is my dog, Titch. Animals see them and regret that you can't. But Mother Earth is eager to transform and take on a new guise not destroyed by human economic transactions, their toxins, and egotistical felling of forests, crucial to wildlife and oxygen production. You should know that our technology is light years ahead of yours. We will share our knowledge when the time is ripe. There will be many alternatives in communication and entertainment. Each household will be supplied with a machine which transforms light energy into matter. It will provide you with clothes and food. There will be prosperity programs which will provide the financial resources necessary. None of this can be revealed in detail before notification of the first wave of changes. You will have new methods of transportation, making cars, trains, and airplanes obsolete. Great changes await transport and infrastructure. New technology will transform medicine. Our technology will reverse the terrible pollution surrounding you. Your entire environment will change fast. There will be no wars. People are brothers and sisters across the world. You will be able to travel across the universe. There will be complete intergalactic cooperation. This is just a fraction of your immediate future. Cecilia and Timothy, you must both understand that your powers will be used to the utmost in this amazing transformation, which has been planned by the Galactic Council for thousands of years. I have to leave now, but I will return, as we're part of a group who will coordinate on various missions here and on Earth. As quickly as he had come, Master Alberto Abertas, creator of this new epic, vanished. I sat as if stunned, until my wife hugged me. Her face was streaked with tears of happiness. We're the chosen ones who will help the Earth back into the fold of the Creator, the Great Spirit, which is the cosmic source of the universe, she sniffed. I was glad that I would be able to tell grandmother and her husband next morning. They were bound to have a mission, too, in this changing world. 28. Indian Wisdom and the Fire of Life. Valencio knocked on my door. He appeared totally elated. Manel was behind him, smiling from ear to ear. I've never seen anyone else do this, but he was expert at it. It's going to be an exciting day, exclaimed Val. We're going to meet Indians. Let me go first, boy. Manel scolded. I'll explain. He sat down with me and my wife. Val initiated a hugging session with Titch. Indians have lived in Agartha since the formation of the continent, Manel told us. You've just met one of them, Alberto Abertas, a man you will meet again soon. Indian culture is as old as time and has been appreciated here most of all. Most Indians are five-dimensional. A very few, those who have only just arrived, are three-dimensional. The ones who have lived here down the ages are considered the wisest of all. We have secret contact with some present-day tribes. They have entrances from above and tunnels connecting Peru and elsewhere. They have a wonderful communications network. They are considered traditionalists in Agartha. Their wisdom is infinite, their love unconditional, and their culture the best preserved of all. There is one problem, they are suspicious of strangers. That's why Alberto and I are coming, too. If he wasn't with us, they wouldn't let us in. They have suffered such humiliation from the surface that you need reliable references to be allowed into their kingdom. Forget you are the Pope's son, Val. It's considered a disadvantage. I've always loved Indians, objected Val enthusiastically. I read tons of Indian books when I was small, and I've always thought they were badly treated. And are still, I added. I'm glad to be meeting them. There are no class conflicts here, Manel continued. We are all equal in the face of the Father. But they don't want bad vibes from surface dwellers. That's happened too often. It won't be a problem if we arrive with Alberto. He'll be here any moment. Here we don't generally use expressions of time like any minute, as Agarthans don't live by the clock, but by the signs of nature. But it was only a few minutes before Alberto knocked, and we entered the hovercraft waiting outside. Enter is a good word, although embark would do just as well, as you climb 3 steep steps to get into one of these vehicles, which otherwise looks like an open car without wheels. Titch was used to it now, and he was the first one in, sitting in the front, leaving a tiny space for me. Cecilia stayed home, maintaining that she was busy. In actual fact, at my urgent request, she was going to see how the land lay for Val. He was thinking of getting married and was pining for the red-headed madcap, Tyra. Cecilia had known Tyra's parents from childhood. The way to Indian country was long, but the loveliness I experienced was nearly devastating. There were no deserts or overgrown wildernesses. The land was cultivated, with regular places for rest and meditation. I've never seen so many varieties of flowers as in Agartha. Manel explained that the profusion of flowers was part of the kingdom's root system. It helped to clean the air, achieving positive energy with its perfumed message and contributing to the inhabitants' well-being. We landed gently. I looked around before Titch pulled impatiently at my sleeve to get out. The air was as balmy as Manel had promised, and the landscape a romantic dream. There were no barriers, just endless mountains, lakes, and tall trees, many in blossom. I could see no compact buildings, just wicker walls entwined with plants. Alberto stepped out of the other hovercraft and welcomed us warmly to his region of Agartha. It was truly lovely. There was an occasional totem pole. These were made of precious stones and weren't exactly like the ones on the surface. The play of sunlight on the multitude of beautifully polished stones was blinding. Around them, also decorated in stones, was semicircular seating with cushions. Alberto explained that people would sit here to meditate. Nothing but the true God was worshipped, the source of all creation. Here's the fire of life, announced Alberto, indicating a winding path. We followed the path and soon found ourselves on a hillside. Above us, at the top of the hill, there was a building that gleamed so brightly it hurt our eyes to look at it. The fire of life restores youth and vitality to the visitor, explained Manel. It bestows upon him great clarity of thought and deed, removing any trace of illness and filling him with joie de vivre. All people should be cleansed by it, but that is unfortunately not possible. The powers that be make those decisions. I thought of grandmother and the stories she had told me when I was small, visiting Sweden, about a holy fire that restored youth and happiness. Here it was. I also knew that there was a room in Telos where youth and vigor could be restored. It was obviously considered important in this strange land. Our health is of paramount importance. Without it, we are pitiful craft floating on the ocean of life. On the surface we have doctors and hospitals, but I prefer the health centers of Agartha. Manel informed us that all tribes and villages had similar places. Illness contributed to economic markets on Earth, and was completely unnecessary. We would be able to show them later how to heal. Alberto Abertas led us through the peculiar, intertwined village so that I could study its strange construction. There were no castles or manor houses, just round or straight walls glimpsed through overwhelmingly luxuriant foliage. Houses are somewhere to live for us. Here they are incredible constructions, alive with people. We saw people everywhere in gaudy, colorful costumes. They were either running around or busy with old-fashioned jobs. Alberto noticed my confusion, but Valencio anticipated my questions by asking, how do these people make a living? Are there no factories to produce goods they need? To me, this feels like going back hundreds of years. You should know by now that we create all we need, replied Manuel abruptly. We still make our own remedies and cures. Children fall down even here, and people get stomach aches, toothaches, and headaches. Accidents happen and we get hurt just like you. We have medicine for everything. The people here are making herbal remedies, collecting herbs and roots in the forests. Do the Aborigines do the same? Val asked. Pretty much, Alberto answered. We have our own traditions. All tribes, whatever the name, have their own culture, but we share the same God, the source, the creator, the word of love which was the word in the beginning. Do you have similar places of worship? It was my turn to ask questions. The various cultures have intentionally diverse places of worship, replied Alberto. People have to feel comfortable in their belief, even if the beliefs are compatible. We respect people's differences. If problems arise, we solve them. You always say that. I protested. Always can be such an uncertain term. Is there someone to turn to if a problem arises, or are the tears shed inwardly in silence? Old Mother Shaluna is life's servant, replied Alberto. We'll look in on her, and you'll get a better answer than I can give you. In a glade beside a huge rock, a woman was sitting on the grass by a fire. She was stirring a cauldron and tasting its contents from time to time. She was small and so thin that her ribs protruded, and her pale face was so wrinkled that there was hardly room for her eyes, nose, and mouth. You would have expected wisps of hair, but to my surprise, I was completely wrong. Old Mother Shaluna had a mane a lion would have envied. She had gleaming, black hair, with curls around her face. She was quite a sight, and she sounded more like a crowing magpie than a human when she spoke. And yet, her words were as clear as embroidery on an otherwise blank canvas. She looked at each of us in turn, and I could feel her gaze was more intense than you would suppose. To what do I owe the pleasure of a visit from fine, healthy folk? She asked, continuing to stir her brew. I'm busy with a cure for the sick, for those who have lost their way from God. They crawl around like lice on a bronze statue. You don't look lost. Alberto leaned over and whispered in her ear. He was rewarded with a toothless smile and a nod. She removed her hand momentarily from the ladle and pointed with a claw-like nail over her left shoulder. We followed Alberto through branches concealing a hole in a great boulder. It was the entrance to a cave. I was again greeted by a sight I was unprepared for. Dal grasped my shoulder and whispered, "What is that?" 29, Old Mother Shaluna's gift. We were in quite a roomy cavern, tastefully furnished with seating around a high bench. A restful light pervaded in dull colors. Meditation music played softly in the background. There were armchairs, obviously intended for the therapist and patient. The old lady was suddenly sitting in one of the chairs. How she had gotten there was a mystery. Is that the patient? She asked, pointing to Val. Titch had crept shamelessly to her side. Her hand, previously so busy stirring, now stroked my dog softly. If the boy will sit with me a moment, I'll sort out the mess in his head, Old Mother Shaluna chirped. He's madly in love, which makes it more difficult. Val sat down reluctantly in the armchair opposite her. Suddenly, the old lady smiled, and her gnarled hands gripped Val's fists. That'll have to wait, anyway, she announced, grinning. I realized all of a sudden how much the smile lit up her old face, so that it exuded love and no longer appeared so ancient. It won't be as easy as he thinks, but it will happen in the end. The young puppy will grow into a fine fellow. But don't give up. Don't let anyone else meddle in your life, as that will be your downfall. Valencio didn't dare say a word. He seemed subdued, but not scared. Can't I marry the one I love? Val asked querulously. The old lady burst out laughing. The young rascal wants a woman, she exclaimed. But didn't he hear what I said? Not yet. It will happen in due course. Here, now is always now. It can only be like that until the next now is ready. He has to understand that if he's staying. And with that cryptic reply, he had to be satisfied. As he got up, the old lady seized his arm. Don't be in such a hurry. Make haste slowly. Play first, before you settle down. True to his upbringing, the Pope's son politely kissed her hand. Old Mother Shaluna was surprised and delighted. Then she pointed at me. Come to me, Cecilla's husband. I have something for you. She was still stroking Titch's neck, which he was enjoying to no end. Sit down, she ordered, as though I were a dog. I did so. Shut your eyes, she commanded, and I did that too. I felt 2 fingers vibrating on my eyelids and tremendous warmth. Timothy needs to be able to see more, she explained. He's married into one of our best families, and he has to be able to keep up. He didn't have the gift, but I've given it to him. She swept her hands once more across my brow, and I felt a sharp pain in my head, then a sensation like falling into something nice and warm. You'll need to get used to seeing more than usual, she commented. When you open your eyes, you'll realize that I'm not what I seemed. Open up and have a look. Where had the old witch with the gleaming hair gone? I recognized the raven tresses, but underneath were happy blue eyes regarding me. These looked out from a pretty face, as beautiful as a rose, with a smile revealing pearly white teeth. If I had not worshipped my wife, I would have been pierced by Cupid's arrow immediately. At the edge of this vision were Manuel and Alberto, curled up laughing. Valencia was on the floor, his mouth gaping. Titch was with him, licking his ear to restore him to reality, doggy reality, at least. What a gift you've been given! Manuel exclaimed. Now you'll be able to see the person inside everyone you meet. You'll become a true judge of character, Tim, and you'll see even more in the future. I rubbed my eyes and turned to hug the beautiful witch, but there were only us visitors there, Manuel, Alberto, Val, Titch, and me. I left the cave with the 2 masters, as if in a trance. There sat old Mother Shaluna, stirring her pot. Simultaneously, I could make out a diaphanous figure at her side, the beautiful girl from the cavern, the girl inside Shaluna. I rushed to hug the old lady, nearly upsetting the cauldron, but she steadied it swiftly and turned on me resentfully. You're in too much hurry, Cecilla's husband, she hissed. Save your mollycoddling for your wife and go on ferreting about for the aborigines next. My chortling companions waved farewell to her, and so did Val and I. Old Mother Shaluna didn't take any notice of us, but stayed stirring her pot of herbs. End of section 29. If you find this audiobook useful, please subscribe to my channel, Rapid Reads.